All right, my little art friends, we're going to talk about artists tell stories in 10 slides or less and stuff and things. So let's just jump right in. This week's unit, Artists Tell Stories, your objective is to create a work of art that tells a story. Pretty straightforward. Here, how are you going to answer this question? How will you choose to tell a story with your art? Or how will the viewer create a story as they look at your art? Ooh, that's some deep questions. Let's jump right in. All right, first of all, we got this picture right here. Definitely a story going on. Do you know what the story is? Did you know what happened? Just look at it. You can just figure out all these things about this person, what they were doing, what they intended to be doing, what the dog did, or what we think he did. Maybe he didn't do it. He might have got framed. There's so many stories in there. It all started way back when these cavemen people were like, "Hey, Ugg, what'd you do today?" And Ugg's like, "I killed a horse." And he's like, "What'd you do?" "I killed a buffalo." "Oh, let's go draw it on the wall and tell our stories to all our friends." So they started drawing these art on the wall to tell the stories. And it didn't just stop with cavemen. A little bit later, the Egyptians, this guy right here, Namar, and this palette was made about him. That's King Namar. Now, supposedly he united two different regions of Egypt, so Egypt became one. And you can tell a story here because he's like, "Dude, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to smack you with this hammer in the head." And if you look at the other side of the palette, he like has all these people lined up that don't have any heads. It was too gruesome for me to show you, but you can just imagine the story that's going on there to tell you about King Namar. Let's move on. Michelangelo painted on the Sistine ceiling, and they were like, "We want you to tell all these stories, like this snake giving this girl an apple." And then, oof, that didn't work out very well. They got kicked out of that nice place they were living by that lady up there with this steel shaft in the guy's neck. He's like, "No, don't stick me in the neck. I'll go, I'll go." The whole story there. Later on, Napoleon hired an artist named David, and he was like, "I'm going to conquer this place." Look at the army guys in the background. "And I must cross the Alps, and I must do it on my gallant steed." But you know, the truth is, Napoleon didn't cross the Alps on a steed. He crossed it on a donkey. He crossed it on a donkey. But you know what? Napoleon wasn't going to have David paint him on a donkey, so he painted him on a steed. There's a whole story there. Listen, this one's a little gruesome, but it's a true story. There was a ship named the Medusa, and it sunk off the coast of Africa. And these people had to make a makeshift raft to try to live. And they were on the raft for like 13 days or something. They didn't have any food or water. It got really ugly really fast, and almost everybody died. And there's a whole story that goes along with it. They finally were rescued, and I think only 13 people lived out of 110 or something. Everybody died, and they had to eat each other. Anyway, that's a whole gruesome story. I'm going to move on. Here is a piece of pop art more recently. So I'm going through the timeline here of life and art. This is an artist, Littenstein, and he copied basically comic books, but he would add different words to them. So here we got this girl, and she's lying on a pill, and it looks like there's ice cream coming out of her eyes. And it says, "That's the way it should have begun, but it's hopeless." So depressing, very depressing stories. They don't all have to be depressing. We can do some cheery stories. Okay, here's a funnier one. Norman Rockwell used to do the cover of the Post Saturday Evening Post magazine. He did so many illustrations for them, and a lot of them were caricatures of people, and they were very funny, like this one here. Now, what's going on is this tattoo artist is writing Betty on his arm, but if you look above Betty, you can see there's a whole bunch of names that got crossed out. So what's the story there? Why is he writing Betty, and who are these other people he crossed out? I don't know. You have to just think of what that story is, but it's definitely a story. Sometimes Norman Rockwell even did serious stories. Like here's this little girl, and she's walking to school, and she's got her books and her pencil and her rulers there, and you can see these U.S. Marshals are walking her in, and there's a sign that says KKK written on the wall above those guys, and there's actually some tomato splats to the right, which is hard to see in this picture. There's a whole story going on here, and it's a true story. So maybe you know what that story is, and Norman Rockwell captured it in this painting. So stories can be funny, they can be serious, they can be all kinds of things. I'm just going to leave you with this last one right here. What's the story? You tell me. Artists tell stories. Create a work of art that tells a story. That's what you're going to do this week. All right, let's go make some art.